College Algebra, Lesson 1-9, Equations of a Circle. Just like a straight line has a standard equation, or a point-slope equation, or a slope-intercept equation, a circle also has those equations. We're going to start with the standard form of the equation. It is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where h comma k is an ordered pair that represents the center of our circle, and r represents the radius. So in our first example, they're going to give us the center and the radius, and we need to put them into our equations. So the x value is represented by h, and the y value is represented by k. I plug them in. X minus negative 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals the radius of 4 squared. You don't need a FOIL, but we do need to simplify. The minus and negative becomes x plus 2 squared, y minus 3 squared, and 4 squared we need to write as 16. That is the standard form of the equation of a circle. In our next example, we're given the equation of a circle. We need to come up with the radius, the center, and then use those to graph. So right up above here, I'm going to write the standard form. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So in my standard form, I have minus sign within each group of parentheses. So I need to change the problem they gave me so that I have a minus sign inside the parentheses. The x minus 2 is fine, but the y plus 1, I need to change it so that it becomes y minus negative 1. And that way it matches the standard form of my circle. Also, it's r squared, not just the 9, but I need to know the radius squared. 3 squared is 9. So now I can look at this problem and find the center, h, which is 2, k, which is negative 1, and the radius, which is 3. My center is 2, negative 1, with the radius of 3. To graph it, I go x2, y is negative 1, and put a dot. That's the center of my circle. And now I go 3 units in all directions. The radius comes from the center to any point on the outside of the circle. And then connect the dots to draw your circle. One shortcut on these problems, if you noticed when we found our center, in the original problem it looked like negative 2, and my center was a positive. Or on the y value it looked like a positive 1, and my center was negative. We're always going to do the opposite of what they give me in the problem. Take a look at this one. Find your center, your radius, and graph. Press pause while you do your work, and then resume play to check your answer. On the problem, I rewrote the plus 3 as minus negative 3. And then the 1 didn't change, and the 4 became 2 squared. So that I matched up h with negative 3, k with 1, and the radius with 2. I plotted the center, negative 3, 1. And then I had a radius of 2 in all directions. So there'll be a few on your assignment like that. And we have one more type to go over. This is the general form of the equation. The general form of the equation is when everything is set equal to 0. In my standard form, x and y are on one side. Now everything's on one side. So what I need to do is use completing the square that we learned back in the beginning of the year to write this in standard form, which will give me the center and the radius that I need. The first step is to get anything without an x or y on the right-hand side. I need to take this 23 and add it to the other side. Because remember, standard form, x and y are on the same side. When I rewrite this equation, I'm going to put my x's together. So I'll write x squared plus 4x, and then leave a space and put my y's together. Y squared minus 6y. Leave a space, equals 23. For completing the square, I'm first going to just look at the x squared plus 4x. So ignore everything else for a moment. We've already learned the long process, so I'm just going to walk us through the short method. In completing the square, remember I wanted to create a trinomial to factor. I wanted to add something extra into this equation. So I took the middle term and I split it in half. This was 2 plus 2. So what I'm going to add back in is 2 times 2, which is 4. I wanted to factor it out and write it as a squared unit. This would be x plus 2 squared. Okay, let's do the same thing now to the y values. So just for a moment, ignore that x portion that we just wrote, and let's do that now with the y's. I want to factor this out into something squared. So I need to create that trinomial. Take the middle term and split it in half. So it becomes negative 3 plus negative 3 gives me negative 6. This would be negative 3 times negative 3, making it 9. If I factored this out, I'd get x minus 3 times x minus 3, which is y minus 3 squared. So I've just completed the square for the x's and for the y's. You take that term, cut it in half, remultiply, and put it back into the equation. Anytime you put something into the equation, on one side, you have to put it in on the other. So if I added 4 to the left, I add 4 to the right. I added 9 to the left, I add 9 to the right. So altogether, this is what it looks like. X plus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 23 plus 4 would be 27. 27 plus 9 would be 36. This is the standard form of my circle. I can look at this and come up with my center. I needed this x to have a negative sign in it, so it becomes minus negative 2. My center is at negative 2, 3, because there's already a minus sign, so it's just 3. And my radius is not 36. My radius is 6 squared, or think of it as taking the square root of 36. I can now plot it at negative 2, 3, with a radius of 6. And your circle should look something like that. All right, let's try it one more time together, and then I'll have you do one on your own. Step number 1, I want just the x's and y's on one side, so subtract 16 over. When I rewrite it, bring the x's together, x squared plus 8x. Bring the y's together, y squared plus 4y equals negative 16. Looking only at the x's, I need to add in a number so that I can factor. To get that number, I cut the 8 in half, making it 4 and 4. The exact same two numbers get multiplied, giving me that third term of 16. This would be x plus 4 times x plus 4. So I can write it as x plus 4 squared. Coming to the y value, I want to add something in. I cut the 4 in half, 2 plus 2. Remultiply them as 2 times 2. So I would add a 4. This would factor into y plus 2 times y plus 2. And I will write it as a squared. If I added in 16, I need to add it to the other side. I added 4, so I need to add it also. Altogether, the standard form of my equation, x plus 4 squared, y plus 2 squared equals 16 and 16 are 0, leaving me with 4. My center is the opposite of what they gave me because I wanted a minus sign inside. So it'll be negative 4, negative 2, with a radius of 2. Just square root the 4 to get your radius. Plot your point, negative 4, negative 2, and draw your circle. It should look something like that. All right, you give one a try. On your homework, page 250, work number 56. Push pause as you work through the problem, and then resume to check your final answer. And here's my work on it. I added the 9 over. I looked at the x's. I split the 4 in half and got negative 2. So I wrote x minus 2 squared. Cut the y in half and I got x minus 6 squared. I had to add 4 and 36 back into the equation. My general or standard form of the equation giving me a center of 2 and 6 with a radius of 7. Your circle should look something like that.